Chicago Politics' special live DNC coverage is made possible by the generous financial support of Field Foundation of Illinois and generous Chicagoans like you.
Folks, I've got 5 months left in my presidency. I've got a lot to do. I intend to get it done. It's been the honor of my lifetime to serve as your president. I love the job, but I love my country more.
Good evening, Chicago, and welcome to Night 2 of CAN-TV's continuing hyper-local live coverage of the Democratic National Convention. I'm Hugo Balta, host of Chicago Politics.
I'm Andrea Zopp, host of Chicago Newsroom 2.0. Let's begin the hour with the daily convention brief.
During a 50-minute speech that began with nearly 4 minutes of sustained, thunderous applause from delegates and guests packed into the United Center, President Joe Biden took to stage last night and presented receipts on a presidency that helped to preserve American democracy, reminding America why he chose to run back in 2016 and articulating the measurable impact of his work on the country's behalf these past years. President Joe Biden, with a grace few others could have demonstrated, passed on the torch to Kamala Harris, declaring her selection as his vice president the best choice he's made his entire career.
In addition to the president, the first night of the DNC included a cavalcade of veteran and up-and-coming Democratic leaders, including former Secretary of State and 2016 Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton, expressing her support for the Harris-Walz campaign. Clinton emphasized the significance of this historic election for women's rights, drawing a clear contrast between Harris's record and that of the former president. Donald Trump fell asleep at his own trial, and when he woke up, he made his own kind of history, the first person to run for president with 34 felony convictions, Clinton said.
Tonight, in their highly anticipated primetime speeches, former President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama are expected to help clearly pass the torch to Kamala Harris, who is holding a rally in Milwaukee this evening ahead of her acceptance speech Thursday night.
Meanwhile, outside the walls of the United Center, thousands of protesters continued marching near the United Center and downtown Chicago. While a small group of protesters breached the outer security perimeter of the United Center yesterday, resulting in a 30-minute standoff with police and several arrests, most of the protests have remained peaceful. More protests are expected this week, with 2 pro-Palestinian demonstrations planned for Wednesday and Thursday.
Our live coverage continues on the other side of the break. Coming up, Alderman Gilbert Villegas and State Representative Marcus Evans Jr. join me front and center to discuss Day 2 of the DNC.
Later, Time 100 honoree Tracy Hall, the president of the Field Foundation Daniel Ash, government strategist Ron Holmes, and the founder of Authentic, Mike Nellis, join me to discuss Project 2025, the 900-page plan developed by a group that includes former members of the Trump administration and which is designed to dismantle American democracy.
Stay with us. We're just getting started.
Don't miss Ashley Munson, her chief of staff Justin James, the band with no name, and a studio audience for the special live 1-hour edition of Munson Tonight on the final night of the Democratic National Convention. Delivering her unique and hilarious take on the DNC and the circus that is politics, Ashley will be joined by political insiders Michigan State Senator Sarah Anthony, Montgomery, Alabama Mayor Stephen Reed, rapper Rhymefest, Ras Kass, artist and rapper, and Phyllis Dickerson, CEO of the African American Mayors Association, each doing their level best to help Ashley make politics make sense. Join the conversation and laughter Thursday, August 22nd at 7 p.m. live on CAN-TV Cable Channel 19 or stream on cantv.org or on the CAN-TV Plus app. Hyperlocal news and public affairs, experience the power of community television live.
I'm Ricky Watson, and I'm inviting you to join me for the series premiere of the new CAN TV original program, Critical Conversation. Each month, I'll share space with special guests who, like you and me, are on their journey of self-discovery and deeper understanding. Join the conversation on CAN TV, cable channel 19, or stream live on cantv.org or on the CAN TV Plus app. Elevated conversation and storytelling. Experience the power of community television.
On her first day in court, Kamala said 5 words that still guide her. Kamala Harris, for the people. That is something that Donald Trump will never understand.
Welcome back to CAN TV's special coverage of the DNC. Now we're here front and center tonight with Alderman Gilbert Villegas, 36th Ward, to discuss what local leaders can do to boost Chicago beyond the DNC. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Hugo, for the invitation.
Alderman, you are a delegate. Tell us about the position and what it means in regard to your participation at the DNC this week.
Yeah, so I am a delegate. This is my first convention that I've been to. I was unable to attend the Denver and Philly, and then in 2020 we had the virtual convention, and I was not going to miss a convention in my backyard. So I wanted to make sure that I was part of history, and little did I know that it would be like really big history, and that we would potentially be electing the first woman president in the 248 years of this great democracy here. So it's been a great time. There's a lot of excitement. I can tell you that I was on the floor yesterday, and nothing but excitement, especially when Vice President Harris went ahead and made a cameo for about 3 minutes. It was just standing room. Everybody jumped out of their seats, out of their suites, and just wanted to make sure that they were part of this excitement. Yeah, and electric, especially at the end when we saw President Biden walking in, and just the standing ovations, and again the expressions of gratitude. I couldn't imagine what it was like to be on the floor. Certainly, when I watched in my television, you could see the electricity oozing. You know, we have to remember that what President Biden has done here really speaks to his character. He put the country before himself. When you take a look at what him and Kamala Harris have been able to accomplish in their 3.5 years, it's historic. I mean, we're talking about a $1.2 trillion capital infrastructure plan. We're talking about a PACT Act that helps veterans. We're talking about the Inflation Reduction Act that talks about the environment. We're talking about the CHIPS Act, which brings local manufacturing back to cities and states. Those are big accomplishments. And to do it in one term, again, it's very historic, but more importantly, you saw the character of President Biden, where he said, listen, you know what, it's time to pass the torch, and he went ahead and passed the torch to Kamala Harris. Yeah. Lots to be proud of in his 50-plus year career. There's approximately 50,000 people expected to descend on the United Center and McCormick Place this whole week. The summer blockbuster is an economic boost estimated to bring between $150 to $200 million to the city. You wrote in an opinion article that there's an opportunity to boost and invest in our local businesses so they can benefit long past August. How are Chicago and small businesses benefiting now, and what must be done to ensure their prosperity once the delegates go home? Yeah, so I sit on a couple of national boards. I sit on the National League of Cities as well as the National Association of Latino Elected Officials, both nonpartisan organizations that we've been talking about, and they've been talking about coming to Chicago. I can tell you that I've been one of the biggest cheerleaders, making sure that they're not just congregating in the central business district, but they're actually going out into the communities, getting out into the 77 neighborhoods. And I can tell you that I put together a list of restaurants that I want my colleagues to visit, a list of local art exhibits that they can visit as well. Again, just get out of the central business district and get into the areas so that way they can explore the city. Listen, this is a once every 10, 20-year investment. And so we've been very strategic about making sure that local, minority, women-owned, and veteran-owned businesses are participating. There's a directory of firms that have been vetted by the DNC that vendors can take a look at as they're procuring goods, making sure that we're getting some of those local firms involved in this. And there's been goals that have been attached to some of the construction, the IT. So every trade or every profession that's associated with the DNC, there has to be minority women participation. And so what we're trying to do again is make sure that with this economic opportunity, that it's rising all ships.
Well, I'm going to ask you for a list of restaurant recommendations after the show.
It's on my Twitter page, just so you know.
Twitter page. As you mentioned, you're the chair of the Committee on Economic Capital and Technology Development. You recently introduced a proposal to require 8% of the city's new data spending to be directed to vendors using Chicago-based facilities. You project this ordinance could eventually generate $50 million to $100 million annually in property taxes and create construction jobs. Tell us more about your proposal and tell us what you think needs to happen in order for what we need from the next president to help boost economic development in Chicago and in Illinois.
So I chair the Economic Capital and Technology Development Committee. It's my 5th year chairing it. And I can tell you that as relates to technology, that's one of the sectors that government unfortunately has not tapped into. We should be taking a look at technology at the forefront, delivering on the services that we provide. Government, we don't manufacture or sell widgets. We provide a service. And we got to figure out how to do it in an efficient manner so that way we can save money for the taxpayers. We can't continue to keep going to the taxpayers with the same old levers that we have to pull right now, which is property taxes, fines, fees, and tip sweeps. We got to find a creative way to create revenue. And I can tell you that by using data as an opportunity to leverage opportunities for local development is what we're trying to do here. So if you think about how, whether you have Amazon, Google, Microsoft, we pay them to store our data, and then they store it anywhere in the United States of America. So as a business, they're going to go where it's least expensive. So what we're seeing is you have in Kentucky, Indiana, Iowa, Wisconsin, data centers that have been put up. Here locally, we have Elk Grove Village, which has tons of data centers. And so what they're doing is they're taking our data and storing it. What I'm saying with my ordinance is this data, you want to store our data, we want you to start building here locally. So that way, number one, the data is local right there. And those are best practices to have the data as close as possible. Number two, it provides to have opportunities in the south and west sides of the city or communities that have vast amounts of land. And so the way that you create revenue is by building these structures and then in turn creating new property taxes off these buildings. This model is not unique to the United States or the world because they're doing it in Europe now. In Virginia, Loudoun County, Virginia, that county has seen their property taxes go from 100 million to $1 billion. Now, I'm not saying ours is going to go to $1 billion in new property taxes, but I estimate, and we have estimates that can go from 50 to 100 million over the next 10 years. And we're talking about real savings.
And I think important to note, there are best practices and lessons learned across the street, across the country, across the world. So it's really great to hear you say that this situation is not unique to our community. These are challenges that exist elsewhere, and we need to learn what's being done, what the responses are, in order to apply them here. We have a couple of minutes left, but I wanted to ask you, you called on the city to open a satellite police district in larger Westtown area. Some Westtown and Ukrainian Village neighbors have long been concerned they don't receive adequate police attention. Tell us about the need and share what a Harris-Walz administration needs to do to help local elected officials like yourself improve public safety.
Yeah, so about 12 years ago, there was a police district that was located in Westtown that was closed. It was part of a consolidation by former Mayor Emanuel. Unfortunately, what we've seen is that there's been a correlation between the closure of the facility as well as crime. So we had the fact that police officers would come back to that station in the community. They didn't have to come down like the major thoroughfares. They would come down side streets if there was traffic, and people would see the police navigating the community. We don't see that now. And what we see is a police station that's about 3 or 4 miles away. And it's tough for the police officers to get dispatched. And when they make an arrest, they have to travel back 30 minutes, 40 minutes back to the police station to process the person. So what I've said is we want to have that police station reopened. If not, let's have a satellite office so that way, again, we can put forward an opportunity for people to see police officers. And what you're seeing in Westtown is that there's been a big boom of restaurant and hospitality activity. And so as a result of that, there's just a lot more activity and police are busy. So we want to make sure that, again, there's visibility. Listen, the Harris-Walz administration is going to make sure that they are investing in public safety, whether through the utilization of technology. And we need to start taking a look at some of these tools that we have available. The fact that, we're not going to police our way out of this situation around public safety. We got to make sure that we're investing in dealing with the root cause, making sure that we're giving opportunities to the youth that that we need to invest in, whether it's through the building trades, whether it's through technology jobs that don't require 4-year degrees, or in those kids that want to go to college. How do we find a way to make it a lot more affordable for them?
Yeah, it's a multi-pronged approach, response to solving this issue, and it takes collaboration both with elected officials, locally, state, and of course federal. Alderman Villegas, you've been wonderful and very giving of your time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Hugo.
Now, when we return on our special edition of CAN TV's Chicago Politics Live on the DNC, we're going to come back with a roundtable to discuss the 922-page ultra-conservative blueprint for restructuring government and eliminating democracy, as it is known, Project 2025. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Amy Goodman, host of Democracy Now!, inviting you to tune in to Democracy Now!'s special coverage of the Democratic National Convention. We'll be broadcasting live from CAN TV in Chicago each day throughout the week of the convention from 7 to 9 each weekday morning. Then tune into CAN TV's special live editions of Chicago Politics throughout the DNC with hosts Hugo Balta and Andy Zopp nightly from 7 to 8. Chicago Politics will feature critical analysis and key insights from local and national political, civic, and community leaders. You can catch Democracy Now! And join the Chicago Politics conversation live on CAN TV Channel 19, stream on cantv.org, or on the CAN TV Plus app. The entire Democracy Now! Team is so excited to join CAN TV for this week-long collaboration. Experience the power of community television.
I'm Darius Hillman, inviting you to join me for the series premiere of Chicago Noir, the news magazine that highlights and showcases the African-American experience in the Windy City. Tune in each month on CAN TV Cable Channel 19 or stream live on cantv.org or on the CAN TV Plus app. Elevated conversation and storytelling. Experience the power of community television.
I'm Francia Garcia Hernandez. On the premiere episode of Presente, the Venezuelan sisters behind Klein's Bakery in Lakeview share their journey of building an anchor business. Join us on Thursday, September 12th at 7 p.m. via Channel 19, streaming on cantv.org and the CAN TV Plus app. Elevated conversation and storytelling. Experience the power of community television.
When I first got to Congress, I wasn't sure I made the right decision. As I approached Vice President Harris for our official photo, she turned to me and asked, "What's wrong?" She then said, among other things, "You are exactly where God wants you. Your district chose you because they believe in you, and so do I."
While the Supreme Court has been ignoring decades of established law to wipe out previously protected rights for women and minorities, more than 100 conservative groups, led by the Heritage Foundation, have been cooking up a dystopian plan that doesn't bother to veil its goal of gutting America's fragile democracy once and for all. Joining me to discuss the blueprint for the dismantling of democracy, known as Project 2025, our librarian and 2023 Time 100 honoree, Tracy D. Hall, president of the Field Illinois Foundation, Daniel Ash, government and public affairs strategist Ron Holmes, and political pundit and CEO of Authentic, Mike Nellis. Tracy, Dan, Ron, welcome back. Let's go. Let's start with first, for those people who, I don't know, have been living in a cave and don't know what Project 2025 is. Can somebody just give me a little bit of kind of a summary of an idea? Steve, you want to start?
I can go first, but it's actually Mike.
I'm sorry, Mike.
No, okay.
I knew that. No, all good.
But Project 2025 is a series of proposals that the former Trump administration officials and other right-wing activists have put together. They call it the blueprint for Donald Trump's second term if he's elected in November. And it's basically the most radical series of proposals that you can imagine. Jim Clyburn called it Jim Crow 2.0 last night. I think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah. Okay, so anybody, we're going to go with a kind of a little bit of a roundtable, and let's get your most scary thing that you think's in Project 2025, Dan.
The most scary?
Well, there's so many, but let's
for me, sort of issue around just gutting civil rights and right to choose, things like that are troubling. But even when you double click into it and you see the vision around media, for quite frankly, defunding the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which some people would see as something that the Republicans always want to do, it's always troubling that they want to sort of redefine and reshape how information is shared in this country. The thing that I walked away with as I was reading some of the headlines around Project 2025 is that while it sets out to dismantle democracy as we know it, what's ironic is that democracy is the thing that's going to actually prevent many of those policies from being implemented.
Well, we certainly hope so. Ron, how about you? What bugs you the most? We're going to come back to some of these.
Yeah, I mean, first off, I just think it's absolutely nuts that anyone would write this down in a document, right? But policy-wise, we have a system where right now we've got 3 branches of government. And Donald Trump has said he wants to be a dictator on day one. This plan clearly shows how he wants to dismantle agencies that quite frankly have stood in his way. So DOJ, IRS, Department of Education. And so the idea of consolidating everything under his thumb is very alarming for all of us.
Right, so we're going to come back to that point about the restructuring. Tracy, how about you?
Well, I'll just continue on from there. What has caused me a lot of sleepless nights are the continued attacks on education and, frankly, the anti-intellectual tone of Project 2025. And I must say, of the Trump administration, if I just can go that far. But, in Project 2025, we see a real attack on early childhood education, which we know is really the equalizer in a lot of cases, setting up young people for success, not only through K through 6, but onto post-secondary education. We also see real tight controls and attacks on freedom and learning. So we see, once again, ideas like diversity, equity, and inclusion being made contraband when we think about high school education, K through 6 education, and I could really go on and on. And so it is the anti-intellectualism in Project 2025, and ironically, the way in which it sort of sets up a thought police that is really concerning and very dystopian.
Mike?
So I would say, and this is a little personal to me, and everybody said some really amazing things that are in this, but it's the attack on fertility rights and access to fertility treatments that really bother me the most. Like, I watched my wife go through hell to have our first son. We named him, and I don't want to say his name on live TV, but his name means gift from God because we were able to have him thanks to IVF and fertility treatments. He is a blessing, right? And to these guys, if it were up to Donald Trump, it was up to J.D. Vance. And by the way, J.D. Vance wrote the foreword to the book that is basically Project 2025. If it were up to them, they would ban or severely restrict fertility rights, and that's not right.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And what's interesting is also the what's interesting about it is there's a phrase in there where they talk about, we really want to protect families and women's rights and their rights to be with their children, and I'm like, well, but there's all kinds of stuff about limiting your ability to have children. But I want to talk about two things there's a couple things that both of you said because they're related. So first, let's talk about the restructuring of the government in a way that puts power into the hands of the presidency. So, all of us learned when we were in, 8th grade. Was it 8th grade when we learned the structure of the government? Like right, it's a balanced government. Schoolhouse rocks, right, which would go away because they would defund public broadcasting. So no Schoolhouse Rock. But that there's 3 branches of government. That the whole point being the government was structured to balance each other, right? And we've already seen some of that kind of slipping away, right? But in the plan actually embeds a lot of power in the presidency and eliminates thousands of protected government jobs. So what are they trying to do here?
Well, look, we've already seen the preview, right? And in 2016, we were warned about what would happen when the Supreme Court got flipped, right? And now Donald Trump's Supreme Court will basically be a rubber stamp to anything that he wants to do. And so in his mind, via executive order, via fiat, he will be able to basically reclassify a number of government employees, declare them to be partisan employees, if you will, and install his own regime of folks. There's a database already of folks that would now be running our federal government that would be completely loyal to Donald Trump. And we've seen what that looks like, right? We've seen the chaos of January 6th. We see this at rallies across the nation. We see this in state houses across the nation. And it is a very scary and troubling thing because all these folks are going to declare loyalty to Donald Trump on day one, and he'll be able to be the dictator that he wants to be.
Right, and the reason it becomes important is that these employees that they're getting ready, there's a whole class of government employees that are protected from politics, right? So that they can be above this, so that they can just come in every day, do their job, right, and not have to worry about it. And they would eliminate thousands of those jobs, and I think that's a huge important part. But now I want to get to the anti-intellectualism, the attack on education. What I see is the dumbing down, right, of America. And there's a reason for that, right, Tracy, right? So why is that important for this plan to succeed? Is it important for Americans, particularly Americans of color and women, to be undereducated?
Yeah, definitely we have to sort of look at the, and I'm chafing a bit even in saying this, but we have to sort of look at who has been voting for whom. And what we know is that former President Trump's base tends to be people who haven't had the kind of economic mobility, but that has been grounded in not having the education mobility that is necessary. And I want to speak on both of those because we are seeing in Project 2025 really the rubrics to kind of keep that connection between low access to job mobility and limited educational access to keep them together. And we also know that we are returning to a place that's elsewhere in Project 2025 where workers are bearing the brunt of being able to have free speech and voice, and also trying to contain unions and union organizing, which is the one thing in many jobs that is really sort of fighting for economic access. And so I think that in sort of looking at, once again, putting labor in a position to say that we think that an educated workforce is a dangerous workforce, that is something that, we're returning back to. And of course, I'm a librarian, but, early on, there was a conversation in this country about whether or not an employee or a worker who could read was also someone that could be supervised. And I see it's returning to this. And that is really, really problematic because the people that it hurts the most are usually the people that don't have the economic or even political mobility to stand up against it.
Right. And also, and this really, Dan, I'm going to come back to you, goes back to something that you said when you were talking about the attack on media and on the public broadcasting system and education, because an informed electorate is critical to a democracy, right? Absolutely. So if you're going to start pulling democracy apart, it really helps if you undereducate people, right?
Absolutely. When I walked away from reading parts of the 900-page document, I walked away thinking that this is one of the most dehumanizing set of proposals that I've ever read. Because basically we're saying we don't trust the individual to be able to step into the public square, be a participant in civil society, and make choices. So on one hand, there's just a lot of preaching about liberty and individual freedom, but in order to exercise that freedom, we have to have access to information, right? And so we don't trust the American citizen to actually navigate a world that's rich in information and make choices. The flip side of this, I was sharing with a few colleagues when I was preparing for this show. I kind of like the fact that they published it. It's published. Because actually, again, going back to this point, it creates an opportunity for us to have a clear-eyed understanding of sort of what this administration would do. And again, I work for a foundation. We're nonpartisan, right? But what we advocate for is participation, right? And this is an opportunity. This document is an opportunity for every American citizen to participate. Read the summaries, read the analysis, and use that to make a choice. And most importantly, it's participating is what's key. So I would actually urge anyone who doesn't like the proposals to actually find the counter proposals.
Yeah.
Because they're out there too.
Right. Yeah, I think, but the other part, you talked a lot about choice, right? And that's kind of the core of democracy, right? That it is choice. And it is, to me, the document is really all about anti-choice, right? It's about how do we limit choice? It's about what things can we not talk about or do. So, for example, there's a phrase in there where they talk about a mandate that they want to put into the federal agencies that says they have to use a I wrote it down, biblically based, social science reinforced definition of marriage and family as a man and a woman, right? That's kind of incredible, right? Particularly in this day and age. But talk about choice. I mean, you and had a choice with your family about how to have a family. To talk about this idea of all these constrictions that they have in here about how we're going to run the country. It just eliminates choice.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the most authoritarian document that we have seen probably in generations in America, and it's certainly the most. They said the inside part out loud, which is odd for the Republicans to do. They're usually pretty good at hiding what they want to actually accomplish. But look, at the end of the day, if they get to enact Project 2025, they're going to be able to tell you what the truth is and what the truth's not. They're going to be able to tell you what you can do with your body and what you cannot do with your body, what your family's going to look like and how you're going to have it, and what a family even looks like, right? Yeah. Look at all these dehumanizing attacks on Kamala Harris because she doesn't have biological children. Right. She's every bit as much a mom as anyone else is, whether or not you have it with IVF or adoption or a found family or something like that. But for the Republicans to be so brazen, for Donald Trump to back this up, for the Heritage Foundation to put this plan together, it's disgusting. And to me what it says is they know that there is a large majority of Americans who want to continue to move our country forward, that want to be able to define their families for themselves. And I'm really glad to see the Democratic Party taking back the idea that we are the party of freedom and having this conversation and calling out Project 2025, because these guys don't get to decide what my family looks like and how I can have my kids.
Right. I think that's a real point. And I think but you did touch on something. You touched on it as kind of a Donald Trump Republican plan, but Trump has been kind of all over the map, right? I support it. Sometimes I don't support it when it's critique. I mean, is this how do we know this is Donald Trump's plan? Because he says, I don't know anything about Project 2025.
Yeah. Well, I think by now a majority of folks that I talk to know that Donald Trump is a scam artist and a liar. And so, he came here to NABJ not too long ago and said he knew nothing about the Massey shooting. This is a guy that you can't trust. You've seen 4 years of his work. You've seen him out on the trail, and more importantly, you see folks that have worked for him and foundations that support him putting their name on this plan, saying that this is ours. And so he may try to distance himself. I think the questions that the press will have to ask over the next 60, 70 days or so will be point by point. Where are you on these issues, and see where he is. And I guarantee you on most of them, he's going to come out in a quiet room somewhere and say that he's for it. I mean, we're certainly seeing that with J.D. Vance as well.
Right. Yeah, I would do want to just say one thing that, it's just under my skin a bit, and I think someone needs to speak to this. We are going to have to wrestle the notion of spirituality and religion and even Judeo-Christianity away from the far right. Because unless people are just reading strictures only in the Old Testament, we have an entire Bible in which the latter half is dealing with this notion of liberatory theology and really dealing with this idea of what we would probably call today sort of an anti-capitalist approach to community building and to just spirituality in general that is not mediated by people who would set themselves up to be quote unquote Pharisees. I say this because, I was raised in a family that was quite religious, and reading the Bible was, mandatory. And I know large portions of the Bible that I can probably repeat, but I just want to say that because I do think that there is even this notion of motherhood, right? And what the ideal woman looks like, and what her family looks like. What we had is, we have, and I need to get a cat because I also don't have children, but these childless cat ladies.
I have 4 cats.
You have 4 cats. Can I have one?
Yes.
But
I'm gonna have to get you one of the T-shirts. I think.
But I just want to draw a contrast between, this notion of idyllic womanhood, who is, this mother. We have Usha Vance, who is a mother, but who still isn't the ideal woman. And even, J.D. Vance was called, on to sort of apologize for being married to someone who wasn't white. And so I just want to say that the basket keeps shifting, but I also think that we have to wrestle back these discourses of spirituality, religion, and also what the ideal woman looks like.
Right. Wow. Well, we have only begun to unpack Project 2025, and we are out of time. But your input has been, and your sharing, I really appreciate this. But what I would tell our audience is, go get a summary of it. It's a long document if you don't want to read the whole thing, but read it. If you care about this country and the way we live now, take some time to read it so you understand, as Dan said, our choices. Thank you so much for being here with us. Thank you for joining us tonight. Really appreciate you. And we're going to keep talking about the stakes in this historic election. Next up is in For the People. Glen Ellen Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Nikki Lang, sits with Black women leaders to discuss the issues that matter most to them. Stay with us.
Little Village, La Villita, a vibrant and diverse neighborhood on the southwest side of Chicago. The community is best known for its rich culture, tight-knit spirit, and delicious cuisine. I'm Hugo Balta. On the next episode of Sazón de Illinois, we'll sample the stories, culture, and cuisine of one of the most beloved restaurants that give this neighborhood its flavor.
On the next edition of The Compassionate Competitor, I'll sit in conversation with former University of Illinois football player turned coach, Chris James.
It might seem like you're down, but all you gotta do is keep battling.
Join the conversation on CAN TV Cable Channel 19 or stream live on cantv.org or on the new CAN TV Plus app. Elevated conversation and storytelling. Experience the power of community television.
Don't miss Ashley Munson, her chief of staff, Justin James, the band with no name, and a studio audience for the special live 1-hour edition of Munson Tonight on the final night of the Democratic National Convention. Delivering her unique and hilarious take on the DNC and the circus that is politics, Ashley will be joined by political insiders Michigan State Senator Sarah Anthony, Montgomery, Alabama Mayor Stephen Reed, rapper Rhymefest, Raz Kass, artist and rapper, and Phyllis Dickerson, CEO of the African American Mayors Association, each doing their level best to help Ashley make politics make sense. Join the conversation and laughter Thursday, August 22nd at 7 p.m. live on CAN TV Cable Channel 19 or stream on cantv.org or on the CAN TV Plus app. Hyperlocal news and public affairs. Experience the power of community television live.
Joe, thank you for your historic leadership, for your lifetime of service to our nation, and for all you will continue to do. We are forever grateful to you. And this November, we will come together and declare with one voice, as one people, we are moving forward.
Hi, I'm Bianca Cotton. On the premiere episode of Behind the Confident Smile, I'll be conversing with Jennifer Bush about her journey of overcoming obesity.
Stepping on my scale and getting an error. That was a shock.
Join the conversation Monday, September 9th at 7 p.m. on CAN TV Cable Channel 19 and streaming on cantv.org and CAN TV Plus app. Experience the power of community television.
On the next edition of The Compassionate Competitor, I'll sit in conversation with former University of Illinois football player turned coach, Chris James.
It might seem like you're down, but all you gotta do is keep battling.
Join the conversation on CAN TV Cable Channel 19 or stream live on cantv.org or on the new CAN TV Plus app. Elevated conversation and storytelling. Experience the power of community television.
I'm Ricky Watson, and I'm inviting you to join me for the series premiere of the new CAN TV original program, Critical Conversation. Each month, I'll share space with special guests who, like you and me, are on their journey of self-discovery and deeper understanding. Join the conversation on CAN TV, Cable Channel 19, or stream live on cantv.org or on the CAN TV Plus app. Elevated conversation and storytelling. Experience the power of community television.
Tonight's For the People segment features a conversation with an extraordinary group of Black women discussing the events that matter most to them. Nikki Lang, Glen Ellen Alumni Chapter of My Sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, will be here, and CAN TV spokesperson will be here to lead the discussion. Nikki, I'm turning it over to you.
Thank you, Andrea. Well, ladies, let's get into it. I don't think we have any time to waste, do we?
We don't.
So as we're thinking about the election, what are really the top two issues that will probably inform your decision? You want to start?
Yep, sure. For me, I think it's going to be everything about health care for women, for the elderly. I am in that sandwich generation where I'm taking care of an aging parent as well as a teen daughter. So that will be one of the issues. And then, of course, the other issue is going to be under education. Project 2025 seeks to kind of dismantle the Illinois or the Department of Education. And so I think it just is going to have some major repercussions for children, especially children of color.
Say more about that as an educator.
Yeah, so I think there are so many things and so many policies and programs that are given to the states to make those decisions. And Project 2025 kind of takes those decisions from the state and puts it back in the hands of the national government. And so states know what its children need. And so I think when the federal government takes control of those things and starts making the decisions, and they say they're giving the decisions to families to make more school choice and things like that, but we all know there are going to be some nuances to that are going to negatively impact Black and brown children, which we won't, know how it's going to impact us until we get into it. And if it's not broke, then why are we trying to fix it?
Amen. Sheila?
I mean, I'm going to be honest. If it's between Trump and anybody else, it's going to be anybody else. Thank God that we have Kamala Harris, who is an extraordinary candidate. And I'll be honest, even when Joe Biden turned the baton over to her, I was a little nervous, thinking like, is America going to vote for a Black woman? And the enthusiasm and the support that she's received, I am so happy to jump behind that. I'm a mother, I am a business owner, so just in general of the issues, if it weren't somebody else, I'd be thinking about education because my daughter's 13 and planning to go to college, and how do we save for that? I'm also part of a sandwich generation. My parents were living with me for the last 4 months, and to think I just turned 50, even though I don't look like it, to think of like Social Security and retirement planning, how, I've read a lot of, Republican agenda that's trying to get rid of things that would protect us going into our older years. And of course, as a woman and a mom of a girl, reproductive rights and
absolutely.
I would want everything for her, and it seems like they are trying to take everything from her. And so that scares me, and I hope that we can get on the right track.
So I have to say something about your comment about turning the baton over, because on that Sunday, the text threads and
right,
networks. I mean, it was just yes, very familiar. Cody?
Absolutely. I would say some of the same things for me, but I would add 3. So equity, economic security, and education. And why those are important to me is when I think about equity, that includes a lot of things, whether it's social, whether it's health, whether it's education, like all of those things are lumped in. And when we think about equity, equity is like what you need, the individual, not like equality, which is what everybody kind of gets. Like we all get the same thing, but we don't all need the same thing. And so for me, I think that's really important. And education, similar to you all, I have a child. And he has a bright future, and he's smart and talented, and I want him to have what he needs and to be able to go after that. Not because you're Black, you don't get this, or you live in this neighborhood, this is what you get. So those things, education is really, really important to me. And then when I think about economic security, it's, we know what that looks like and what we need, and we know that we oftentimes get kind of the scraps. And so what opportunities and what is on the table for Black people. I mean, intentionally Black people, because we're not people of color, like we're Black people. And so it does make a difference. And so those are some of the things that are important to me.
Come through, Cody, with the intentionality, right? Not the scraps.
Yeah, so as a graduate student, student debt is really important. I think it has been promised for so many candidates over time, and so I'm really looking to see something happen, because students who are working towards the workforce, we want to pursue our careers, but we also know we have a lot of debt, and so we want that taken care of in some way. And so the other part is that I am trying to be a psychologist, and so mental health services for our Black and brown youth is so important to me. It is just a necessary thing that everyone should have access to, and that's not what's happening right now. So that is something that I'm looking forward to seeing.
And remind me, you're writing right now, right?
I am
writing right now.
I'm writing my dissertation, but also servicing the community. And so those are twofold for me. I can't write if I'm not understanding what's happening in the community, and the need is there. So
absolutely.
You want to take us home on this one, Tasha?
Absolutely. You all were spot on. I believe that the economic piece for Kamala is going to be really strong for me right now, especially as we talk more about equity and Black voices as it relates to being able to capitalize in this country for Black people, and being able to have access to more money and more funds so that we can leave those legacies as business owners and as entrepreneurs. And as an entrepreneur myself, I couldn't imagine not having access to the minority network value that we see right now in large cities, especially as it relates to economic development. Building right now is like one of the top things that I'm seeing a lot of my sisters and brothers going out there to do, being in the real estate and making sure that they build those legacies for their families. So that's a very important piece that we continue to advocate for one another. And of course, healthcare. No man by any means. We are too under-researched, us as women in this country. And historically, Black women, I don't even know if they're researching us or if they're just analyzing us. But we definitely need to secure our bodies, make sure that these people have an understanding, make sure that men now understand more about women and the needs of women and what the reproductive system does to you, whether it goes through or sometimes it falters on us. So there needs to be clarity around that subject matter, and there needs to be advocacy. And I believe Kamala is going to bring that to the table for us.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, I'm sitting here as a Black woman, we're sitting here as Black women. If you ask me on any given day, we can do whatever we want.
Absolutely.
However, I have to ask the question, is America ready for a Black woman president?
I would say yes.
Okay.
Because why not?
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we do and we stand for so much. We can do anything that literally we put our minds to do.
Yes.
You put a task in front of a black woman and we're going to get the job done no matter what. And so historically, our mothers and our aunts, we've seen them do some amazing things, and the things that they have given up, they've given up for their families. And so Kamala Harris, she's married and she's doing her thing. She's been an attorney. She's lived the dream, and now being able to watch her pour that back into the community and to people, to be a servant in that magnitude, I think that's awesome.
Absolutely.
And I think we're going to do great things under a woman leader.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Oh, I would love to say.
We all do.
It's a question for me.
Yeah.
Why, right. I think why not? And we've already had the other candidate. We know what happened during that time. So I think giving her a chance, because she's been a senator. She's been an attorney. She's done things that has positioned her, which why the president had confidence in putting her in everyone. And you see the amount of money she raised in just 24 hours. So to me, I think that's important, but I do understand why the concern, because we know as black women how Malcolm X said it, that the most disrespected person on the planet is the black woman. And we know that, I feel that sometimes from our own men, from any and everybody. And so giving her that opportunity, I think, is going to show the world that, y'all been asleep on black women. You've been asleep.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I just want to add, I think it's more so the willingness. Are you willing to be led by a black woman? Each of us have probably worked next to a black woman, been supervised, been upheld by a black woman, and so it's asking America, are you willing to allow her to lead us? She's overqualified. We know she can do the job, but do you want to, and are you ready for that?
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
You want
We didn't think that Barack Obama would.
I know.
We didn't think it. And he was elected twice.
Yeah.
So that's why I go back to, the Sunday when Biden announced that she would be taking over, and it was like a relief. People were like, yes. Somebody, and her confidence, I think, is what really uplifted people, because she said to America, I'm ready for this. Bring it on. And, let him debate me, and I will slaughter him.
And the numbers have gone up so much.
Absolutely. So I think with her confidence that America is becoming more inclined to give her an opportunity and really see that she can do it.
Yeah.
So then I'll ask this, because it's been already said. His name has already been said. What is your greatest fear about Trump being elected as president, Tasha?
Oh, man. Seeing the world crash into a space of no compassion. Humanity is about being compassionate to one another. We aren't produced to hate one another. We don't come here in the numerical. With so many of us, that's all it is operating around the world is people in one way or another. And when we bring one another down to our finest morsel, it's almost as if we're not here to serve each other. And when you are telling people and delegating, I am not here to service you. I'm here to service me. I'm here to service my agenda, and anything that doesn't look like it, I don't want to hear about it. And name calling and what have you, and turmoil, and just the chaos and the world wreck. It is scary to think about how seeing a black woman is going to change things, just to kind of integrate both of those questions about whether America is ready for a black woman president as well, because Kamala also identifies as an Indian woman, and that is that exclusivity about her, namely speaks to this is us, this is America.
You got it, and I think that's going to be the last word. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I think we showed up well today in everything that we had to say about black women.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank
you all for that really thoughtful
in-depth conversation. I know I've learned a lot, so I appreciate the candor. When we come back, Dr. Geraldine Luna, Medical Director for the city's Department of Public Health, has the last word.
Hi, I'm Amy Goodman, host of Democracy Now!, inviting you to tune in to Democracy Now!'s special coverage of the Democratic National Convention. We'll be broadcasting live from CAN TV in Chicago each day throughout the week of the convention from 7 to 9 each weekday morning. Then tune into CAN TV's special live editions of Chicago politics throughout the DNC with hosts Hugo Balta and Andy Zopp nightly from 7 to 8. Chicago politics will feature critical analysis and key insights from local and national political, civic, and community leaders. You can catch Democracy Now! And join the Chicago politics conversation live on CAN TV Channel 19, stream on cantv.org, or on the CAN TV Plus app. The entire Democracy Now! Team is so excited to join CAN TV for this week-long collaboration. Experience the power of community television.
I'm Darius Hillman, inviting you to join me for the series premiere of Chicago Noir, the news magazine that highlights and showcases the African American experience in the Windy City. Tune in each month on CAN TV Cable Channel 19 or stream live on cantv.org or on the CAN TV Plus app. Elevated conversation and storytelling. Experience the power of community television.
With tonight's last word, Dr. Geraldine Luna, Medical Director of the Chicago Department of Public Health. Dr. Luna, you have the last word.
Thank you, and good night, Chicago. One of the most crucial government investments for the city of Chicago would be ensuring equitable and quality health care access for all. Health care is a basic right. Currently, there are too many people in Chicago who don't have insurance, especially in our Black and brown communities. For instance, the Latino community has the highest uninsured rate at 17.7%. This group includes new arrivals, undocumented individuals, the elderly, expectant women, and children. Without adequate medical care, these individuals face significant barriers and delays in essential services such as family planning, reproductive care, elderly care, prenatal, postpartum, as well as preventative service for infants and children. Second, we urgently need comprehensive immigration laws and reform. Chicago is dealing with an immigration crisis that has been exacerbated by insufficient policies and infrastructure. Despite over $300 million invested in federal, state, and city responses, around 60% of our immigrants end up re-entering the shelter system due to unsupportive immigration policies, making the resettlement and integration process unsuccessful. Lastly, there is a critical need for investing in affordable housing and community development. Chicago must prioritize expanding access to safe, affordable, and quality housing options for its residents, ensuring they have the right to live in homes that are not only affordable, but also safe and healthy. By prioritizing these areas, we can better support our residents and foster a more inclusive and resilient city. It is through commitment and leadership and thoughtful investment that we will make meaningful progress and create a better future for everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Luna. Very insightful. Thank you for your time. And thank you, Chicago and beyond, for watching our continuing live DNC special coverage.
Tomorrow, Wallace Gator Bradley, Steve Vallis, Mike Nellis, and Dominica McBride will join me at the roundtable.
And LGBTQ elder leaders and Latino leaders share their perspectives on issues impacting their communities on 2 special For the People segments.
Join us tomorrow at 7 p.m. on CanTV Cable Channel 19 or stream live on cantv.org or on the CanTV Plus app. Until then, be well and well informed. Good night.